A lot of companies, Nutanix included, are building strong in-house agencies for video, for web, for copy, because you know your voice better than anybody else, and then use those talented agencies to help bring that great idea to life or just take it to the next level.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
Hey there! Welcome to episode 266 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Ingresso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. My guest on this episode is Julie O'Brien, SVP of Corporate Marketing at Nutanix. Julie, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. It's delightful to be here today.
Well, I'm excited to get together with you today. A little play on words, because when I found you, I came across this awesome campaign that we're going to talk about today, and it's called All Together Now. So before we get into that, before we learn what it is, let's get some background, some context. Tell us about your company, Nutanix.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So Nutanix was founded in 2009 with a simple but powerful vision that data centers could be built and managed as easily as doing a one-click upgrade on your iPhone, for example. And that if we could make the infrastructure so simple to build and manage that it felt invisible, then we could free up IT to focus on things that are much more important to the business, whether it's, building out a new DevOps practice, launching the next great application, improving agility, competitiveness, just the higher order bits that the business really requires rather than being focused on just keeping the lights on. So since 2009, we've gone public on NASDAQ. We've grown to about 5,500 employees in 160 plus countries all around the globe, and more than 14,000 customers ranging from Toyota to the Royal Bank of Canada to Société Générale, L'Oréal, across all industries. Basically, any company that has a data center has the opportunity to benefit from Nutanix software.
Terrific. Now, I noticed that a lot of your messaging is around the hyper-converged infrastructure. You want to just briefly elaborate on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's really where Nutanix started. We helped invent the category of hyperconverged infrastructure. And what that essentially means is taking siloed technologies, compute, storage, virtualization, networking, and integrating them into a single software stack that can run on just about any hardware. So we're really all about busting silos on the technology side and also bringing those siloed teams together.
Okay, terrific. Now, Julie, your role there is Senior Vice President of Corporate Marketing, correct?
That's right.
So why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I joined Nutanix about 4.5 years ago now, and started with a team of, probably about maybe 20 people at most back in 2015, and really focused on primarily brand and demand gen. And the company's been growing leaps and bounds since, roughly 40% year over year. And the marketing team now is about 260 people around the world. And so my team has grown and changed too. So while my core focus in the organization is still very much on building brand and driving demand, it also now includes things like a DevOps marketing practice. We made some acquisitions in SaaS. So I have SaaS marketing as part of a team, all facets of creative services, content marketing, anything that touches customers. So right now we're actually running an executive advisory board in New York City. So it really runs the full range of brand, demand, and also some fun new areas that I get to dabble in.
Sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds like a big job also, Julie. So that's really terrific. Thank you for that context, that background, both on the company and your role. So let's talk about your current campaign altogether. And when you and I talked in preparation for the podcast, you gave me some background. So I'd like to ask you to share that with the listener. How did you evolve to the current campaign? Of course, I'm going to ask you to tell us what the current campaign is. But I want a little bit of background, some context on what got you to the current campaign of Altogether.
Sure. So our prior brand campaign was called Freedom, and it had 5 pillars: freedom to run, freedom to cloud, freedom to invent, freedom to play, freedom to app. And it allowed us to focus in kind of on different buyers that were at different stages of their journey with Nutanix. It was very much focused on no vendor lock-in and choice. Ultimately, simplicity, choice, and delight are really kind of the hallmarks of the Nutanix brand promise. And that campaign ran from May 2018 until just recently. And so as we reflected on what the next chapter would be of our brand story, we wanted to make sure that we were telling our story in a really differentiated, fun way, to stay close to the technology and very much focused on 3 key plays that we've also rolled out to our sales organization and hit on those points that I mentioned for our brand promise: simplicity, choice, and delight. And so the rally cry that we landed on is all together now. And as I mentioned earlier, the very sort of heart of Nutanix and the heart of what hyperconverged infrastructure is all about is breaking down silos and technology and bringing people together so that they can work better together. We thought it would be really fun to use people to personify the technology and the apps and the clouds that we have throughout the 3 chapters in our campaign, to make it really fun and human and relatable, with some really eye-popping colors so that we were very differentiated from what you would see in typical enterprise IT advertising. Of course, you have to have an anthem video to go with it. And so we chose to redo the soundtrack Happy Together, which I'd be happy to sing a little bit if you'd like. The original soundtrack was from the Turtles. This is the campaign that we went out with. We launched it globally in digital and demand gen on October 1st. And it really is meant to tell the story of the journey that we see our customers going on. First, building a private cloud with HCI as their core foundation, then running their apps on that beautiful foundation, and then ultimately building a hybrid cloud environment where they're taking, the very best of the technology that they have for their private cloud, and also bringing in public cloud where it makes sense for them, if it makes sense for them for their business.
Julie, you just mentioned that you launched it earlier this month. We're recording this right around the end of October. And so you mentioned that you launched it globally. So can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? What does that look like at Nutanix for a global campaign like this?
For us to launch globally, it's really everything from digital paid media, of course, retargeting. We did takeovers in some of the key publications or sites where our readers go to. So the Register, TechCrunch, TechTarget, for example. We do some very surgical out-of-home placements where either we have investments, so we're not trying to just hit the unwashed masses, but for example, we had a big investment at GITEX, which is a huge conference in the Middle East. We had our own .next user conference in Copenhagen recently. So that's where we would do those out-of-home placements, and lots more to come. We also look for opportunities where maybe we know our buyers are, but we actually physically aren't in that trade show environment. So a good example of that would be Cisco Live or VMworld, where we'll do guerrilla marketing takeovers so that we're, being smart about our dollars. We're also doing some ABM micro-targeting where our top 50 customers are located. So, for example, maybe you would think of a New York City building where you have those elevator advertisements available to you. So being very thoughtful about, again, where our key customers or target prospects are. And then just broad demand gen. So looking at fun ways and themes to bring people together, and webinars and our direct mailers and what we call our meeting makers.
It's interesting. It seems to be a recurring theme here on the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, Julie, where we're talking about the blend of branding and demand generation. So I actually want to go there in this conversation on how you're how you devised the strategy in order for this campaign to be both brand centric, but also demand gen centric as well. How are you balancing those two?
Yeah, and I think we've really evolved as an organization into this nice integrated blend that you see with this campaign. At times, maybe it was right around the IPO, for example, where we just wanted a big brand push into the market. We hadn't always necessarily linked our demand gen activities globally to be fully synchronized. And so the team is working very closely together to make sure, again, on that October 1 launch, not only do you have all the air cover that you would expect to see in all of those places that I was mentioning, but also that the sales organization, the inside sales organization is ready to go. The reps are ready to go. And what we've done is basically those sort of 3 chapters that I talked about in terms of HCI on your private cloud, running your apps on Nutanix, which is basically any of your business apps, as well as things like databases. And then thinking about your hybrid cloud strategy, we organized 3 sales plays around that. So all of the enablement for our sales organization, we actually launched it to them at our sales kickoff, which was in August. So they had a really nice sneak preview and an opportunity to see this campaign and understand the plays on the main stage at our sales kickoff, but then also click into some deep dive breakout sessions for each of the plays to get smarter. Of course, then all of the enablement that comes with that, customer facing presentations, channel enablement, call scripts, and then all of the marketing blitz around it with direct mail, digital, again, webinar series tied to those 3 plays. And then encouraging customers and prospects to meet with us and coming up with some really playful ways to sort of get together with Nutanix and get together with our channel partners.
So, Julie, you've shared with me some of the assets, the video, the landing page. Of course, we're going to put all that in our show notes, so my listener knows that. The video is fantastic. It's high quality. As you said, vibrant colors, lots of, I'm going to use the word emotion, like the people that are involved in this, they really look like they're having an experience. It's really, really well done, just, first class. What I wanted to ask is to elaborate on your last point about how you enabled the sales team back at the SKO sales kickoff in August. Did you get any input from the sales team in advance on the kinds of things that are important to them in their current selling environment?
We did. And before we take any brand campaign out, we always go to kind of our trusted advisors in the sales organization in all corners of the globe so that we're getting good, diverse feedback, right? Because, this was a little bit of a gamble for us. Could we pull off personifying these technologies in such a way that would be playful and delightful, but not too kitschy, right? And then the other thing we wanted to understand is, would this land? Would this land in Japan the same way that it would in Germany, the same way that it would in LATAM?
You read my mind. I was going to ask you that because of the different cultures across the globe.
Exactly. And then even like leading up into the brand campaign, we were obviously working really closely between our product marketing organization and the sales organization to say, look, okay, now Nutanix has grown from being kind of a one product company where that one product was hyper-converged infrastructure to now, you can do desktop as a service with Frame. You have the ability to get smarter about your cloud spend with products like Beam. You have the ability to do secure microsegmentation with products like Flow. So how do we really help focus the sales organization on that phrase that people often use, like what's on the truck, and really where we want to put that concerted push together as a sales and marketing organization. And so those pieces all came together, and then that's what you're seeing feed into the Anthem video that was created. And then that microsite that takes you through each of those chapters with a lot of content, assets underneath. And then again, the sales motion also coming in together to follow up with customers on, what are you thinking about in terms of your private cloud? Have you thought about how you're handling databases with one-click simplicity? What are your plans for public cloud? How can we help you integrate what you're doing in your private cloud with your public cloud? So really, really strong partnership between sales and marketing to understand, again, what's on the truck and ready to sell, how we can focus on a few things instead of just everything and kind of overwhelm both our sales organization as well as a channel, and then really have a concerted marketing air cover and demand gen initiative to back it up.
We'll be back in just a moment with the rest of my conversation with Julie O'Brien. At Vengresso, we run the Digital Selling Benchmark Assessment Report. It is an assessment for B2B salespeople to understand what their current state of digital selling skills are. We survey them with 10 multiple choice questions to understand where they are today with their digital selling prowess. Now, that survey is the foundation for our report called the State of Digital Selling with LinkedIn 2019 report. We summarize the findings from 862 sales reps, and we've got commentary from 15 executives. I want to invite you to download that report. Go to stateofdigitalselling.com. And we're getting ready to survey people for the 2020 version of the State of Digital Selling report. That'll be available early second quarter of 2020. But before you get ready for that, and you can participate in that if you like, stay tuned for more on that. Make sure that you get the 2019 State of Digital Selling report. Again, go to stateofdigitalselling.com to get that report now. So how long will this campaign run?
We always plan to run for at least a year because as much as we enjoy seeing things again and again and again, and we expect everyone has the same exposure, that's just not the case, right? And even though we pull the trigger to go global on October 1st, there may be a few weeks here or there where things are just rolling out a little bit differently. So it's important for you to have enough time to be able to measure the impact of what you're bringing into the market. So our Freedom campaign had run just over about a year and a half, and I expect that this one will be about the same. And then we'll be closely watching our KPIs. And for DG, it's all about meetings and ultimately pipeline created. So for North America alone in our Q2, we're targeting 60 million in pipe. And obviously that number is going to be a lot bigger because it'll have global numbers behind it too. And from an awareness perspective, we're striving to improve both aided and unaided awareness in the global brand survey that we run, specific to the countries where we're investing. So we're going to look at, are we being smart about our dollars, getting to where our buyers are, and are we making a difference in the activity that marketing is doing to try to make those changes happen? So for us, total unaided, we'll be looking to go from 6% to 10%. For aided, we'll be looking to go from 43% to 50%. And then we'll also be watching engagement on that microsite that you mentioned, nutanix.com/together. And we've seen really great traffic so far. It's actually been 2x what we had for our Freedom campaign. And we were really happy with the engagement and the traffic we had there. And the average time that we're seeing spent on the site right now is just over 4 minutes, which is about a minute and a half longer than the Freedom campaign, which also had great engagement and a great bounce rate. This microsite has an even better bounce rate. It's down something like 5%.
So what kind of a team do you have to put together all the marketing technology, manage all the metrics, and then keep you informed, sort of up to the minute on these key metrics that are just right there, Julie, right at the tip of your tongue? You've got all the key metrics right there. So you must have an awesome team behind you.
I do have an awesome team. I am very, very lucky, best in the business. And so it's really the team working in concert. So someone who's heading up the brand initiative, who's working hand in hand with each of the regional leaders to identify those special out-of-home opportunities where we can, have the most impact with our dollars digitally if takeovers make sense. In some countries, they still might want to do some print advertising. The programs team is working really closely. So this is our demand gen team working really closely with brand to take all of that creative goodness and bring it out into touch points that will create meetings that will ultimately generate into pipeline for our sales organization. And they work really closely with the marketing operations team to make sure that everything is being measured and tagged appropriately so that we can bubble this up into dashboards and show how we're ultimately doing toward progressing to those meetings goals, the awareness goals that we talked about, and ultimately the pipeline goals that we spoke on. It's a great global team, super collaborative, and We have an awesome agency behind us. So Grizzly, I'm just going to do a shout out to them. They really brought the creativity to life. We had an idea. They really built upon it and helped us find those unique characters that you see in the video that really personify the different components that we're talking about. And then Two Rivers, who we've worked with for a really long time on video and audio production, actually worked closely with us to take that Happy Together soundtrack, get all of the appropriate licensing behind it, and really make it our own. So we just tweaked it to make it, special for Nutanix.
What about over the span of time? You said that the campaign will run about a year. Things change. So do you do any evolution to the campaign? Do you augment it with content based on sort of real-time feedback from the marketplace or from the sales team maybe?
The places where you will see adjustments or changes made would be around some of the applications that we're highlighting. For example, we just had Oracle Open World, and Oracle is one of the applications that works with Nutanix. And so you might see from the DG side an emphasis on the Oracle application. So this campaign is actually meant to be really modular so that we can highlight different applications, different opportunities throughout the year, right? So Microsoft SQL Server is another big use case for us. So we'll be at Microsoft Ignite in just a bit, and that will be an opportunity for us to not only be there physically with a presence, but also then pull that through into other activities and other DG components. So there may be, opportunities like that will just sort of showcase a different type of application at a different point in time. And then, of course, our job in marketing is to fill top of funnel and take people all the way through that journey. And so working closely with our great creative services team and the product marketing team, there'll be different assets that we can highlight throughout the funnel as the year progresses. And those three plays that I mentioned, they just have a lot of legs to them. So I do expect this to be pretty dynamic, but where that will show up will be more on the event side and the DG component of that, whether it's digital demand gen or actually those meeting makers and the webinars and things that we spoke on.
Julie, I have one more question before I segue to my summary. And I did not prepare you for this question, so it's going to be very real time. I'm just thinking of sort of the diversity of my listener. You work for a large organization. You're a public company, over 5,000 employees. You have a nice big marketing team. What advice do you have for the listener who is really intrigued by what you're doing, excited about doing something similar to that, but maybe they don't have 200 people in their marketing team. Maybe they have 5 or 10 or 15, whatever the number is, right? Just a smaller team. Any advice on how to put together a similar strategy from a campaign standpoint with a smaller team?
The best ideas often come from inside the company. Many of us have probably been on a path where we brought in, external agencies and just haven't quite landed on what your vision was. So I would just say, you probably have the creativity within your own walls now. And who are the people that you can bring into a meeting room, close the door, have a whiteboard, and just really riff on what your demand gen goals are, what your brand value proposition is, and how you can bring that together and be smart about the resources that you have. And that might be bringing somebody in from inside sales, somebody in from product marketing. It could be someone from your customer support team who's talking to customers every day. And don't be worried about trying to insource that great idea. And then same thing on the creative agency side. I mean, a lot of companies, Nutanix included, are building strong in-house agencies for video, for web, for copy, because, you know your voice better than anybody else. And then use those talented agencies to help bring that great idea to life or just take it to the next level. You don't always have to boil the ocean with your campaign either. And I think that's one thing that we've really learned over the years is how can you get very, very focused, because we all have limited dollars, right? And as much as, we're a public company, so everyone should be buying Nutanix stock, right? So on the one hand, our investors are everywhere. Maybe we should be advertising everywhere. But how do we really partner with the sales organizations to say, okay, financials is a big, important vertical for us. What are we doing in New York City? What are we doing in Virginia? What are we doing in London? Do we know where those prospects are? And how can we really tailor our dollars and our efforts in the best way possible? So I would just say, focus, focus, focus. Look for those great creative brainstorms and breakthroughs internally. And then if you can afford it, ad hoc the team with some of those great agencies that really understand you and can take that kernel to the next level. We've all had small budgets. We've all experienced what it's like to market and sell on a shoestring, and just make sure you're lockstep with your sales organization.
Exactly. Well, those are great words to close on for our conversation. So what I want to do now, Julie, is segue to the part of our podcast where I'm going to do a brief summary of our conversation, and then I'll ask you to elaborate on anything, maybe fill in any holes, and then we'll ask you for your digital contact information, and we'll bring this episode to a wrap. So we began our conversation with a brief introduction to your company, Nutanix, founded in 2009, all about being a one-click data center upgrade. It's all about the invisible infrastructure, the hyper-converged infrastructure. Today, you're a public company with over 5,000 employees and in over, I think, 160 countries. And we are here to talk about what we discussed today was your role at the company and the campaign all together now. And as Senior Vice President of Corporate Marketing at Nutanix, you've been there 4.5 years. You saw your marketing team grow from 20 to over 200, and you oversee brand, demand gen, and even DevOps and SaaS marketing. So big job. So we talked about the predecessor to the current campaign, which was the freedom theme, all built on 5 pillars that really kind of highlighted the different buyers on their journey. There was really no vendor lock-in. That campaign ran for about 1.5 years or so. And as you thought about the next generation of your story, you wanted to stay focused on the messaging, the 3 pillars of simplicity, choice, and delight. So you said, let's really stay close to what Nutanix does, and it's all about helping companies work better together. And so you and your team came up with this concept of Together Now. It's very human, it's very eye-popping, very creative, and you went global with it at the beginning of October. You've got your digital paid media, you're doing takeovers, you're doing out-of-home placements, you're at events, you're also doing creative marketing where you're not at events, and then you're, of course, integrating both the brand side, brand awareness side to demand generation. We talked about how you launched it at the sales kickoff in August of this year and really prepped the sales team. Previous to that, you said you got some feedback from the sales team so that you incorporated the things that are important to them. And the campaign is all about driving meetings, driving pipeline. You said you're targeting 60 million in pipeline. Love the fact that you've got a target number there, and you're targeting both aided and unaided awareness. You've got your digital assets with your landing page already averaging, better than it was before. You said 4 minutes right now. And we talked a little bit about your marketing team, very robust marketing team, digital brand programs, marketing ops. You gave a shout out to some external resources, your Grizzly agency on the creative side, Two Rivers on the video and audio side. And then we talked briefly about the fact that over time, things can change mostly around maybe applications that are part of your ecosystem. And so maybe you have to make some adjustments around that. And then we closed the conversation, Julie, most recently. At the end of the discussion, I asked you, how does a smaller marketing team roll out a campaign similar to this? I loved your advice. You said, the best ideas come from internal because nobody knows your company, your value proposition, and your voice better than you and your team do. So get together, whiteboard some ideas. What's your value proposition? Get input from sales, customer support, product marketing, just all the different stakeholders, and then just be smart about your resources, put a plan in place, and then if you can afford it, get some outside help to help you really execute it, but make sure that you really control your voice because, again, nobody knows your voice better than you do, and just use outside help to help you execute. So I'll leave my summary there. Is there anything, Julie, that you would like to add?
No, I think that was a great summary. We're just super excited about this campaign. I think, one of the things with technology is you do want to be as relatable as possible. And at the end of the day, we're just all people. We're just all humans. And so it was really important for us to show that, Nutanix gets that. And we are working closely with customers, closely with our partners, closely inside the company to ensure the success of our end users. And just wanted to also say that 60 million in pipeline, that was only for DG, only for Q2, and only in North America. So I expect big, big numbers from this campaign.
All right. Well, thanks for that clarification. Because, of course, this will be in the wild. So lots of people will hear that, I'm sure, even at Nutanix as well.
Yep.
Well, Julie, where would you like to send my listener to connect with you, to learn more about you and the All Together Now campaign and just everything you've got going on at Nutanix?
Sure. So I think you have, as you mentioned, the resources here. So Nutanix.com/together is where you can go and you can check out that Anthem brand video that I mentioned right at the top of the microsite. And then you can click into all of the chapters and see the kind of assets that we're using to help educate our customers and our prospects. I'm pretty prolific on Twitter and LinkedIn. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to have you connect. So my Twitter handle is Julie A. O'Brien. And then you can absolutely find me on LinkedIn as well. And again, look for Julie O'Brien, SVP of Corporate Marketing at Nutanix. Look forward to hearing from you.
Fantastic, Julie. Well, before I thank you, I'm going to thank you in just a moment, but I just want to emphasize to my listener that the assets you provided are really, really terrific. Definitely worthwhile. This is a case study in a global brand demand gen program. It's absolutely a case study. So whether you visit the assets directly, Nutanix.com/together, or if you're on our weekly alerts where we send these out, you'll get it. It's going to be linked up in our show notes page at vengresso.com. And I'm just excited and I just feel honored and privileged to have had you, Julie, to share the story with us here on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thank you so much, Bernie.
Hey, remember to get the 2019 version of the State of Digital Selling report. Just go to stateofdigitalselling.com.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at vengresso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengresso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at vengresso.com. And that's 1 S in Vengresso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.